If you were seeing this, you are one of the very first people to ever see my channel, or you have watched everything that I've ever put up. So either way, congratulations on being a real one, and thank you for your support. According to Isaac Newton's secret fourth law of physics, while you're looking for a Lego piece amongst assorted bulk Lego, that piece ceases to exist. However, once you find it, it proliferates until it seems that you're seeing it everywhere. When I got married in May of 21, my brothers decided that they would kill a couple birds with one stone, taking the Lego that my parents complained took too much space in the storage room and gifting it to me. I was initially thrilled, but quickly found that I wasn't really able to use that Lego for basically anything for this very reason. Intuitively, the solution is to keep everything sorted, but I found surprisingly little effective guidance on the subject online. I have spent roughly the last 2 years figuring out, using trial and error, how to sort my Lego collection. This video will summarize everything that I've learned, hopefully in a manner that will help you in transforming your own chaotic Lego into sorted Lego. Really fast, if you just want the simplified breakdown on what I do to sort my own Lego instead of my advice on how to create your own sorting solutions, I have grouped all of that information together immediately before the end card and will leave a timestamp in the description. First and foremost, I want to cover the 2 genuinely helpful pieces of advice that I found online. There's only 2. I don't know how I got to that point. First and foremost, you shouldn't sort your Lego by color. Intuitively, you might think that that doesn't make a ton of sense because anything else will look less sorted. However, it's easier for your eyes to pick out differences in color amongst something that is all the same shape than differences in shape among something that's all the same color. Just to drive the point home, take a look at this cup that is sorted by 1x2 plates, and note how easy it is to find the red 1x2 plate, compared to this cup, which is all sorted by red, where it's relatively difficult to find the 1x2 plate that we want. Of course, in an ideal system, we would want to be sorting by both part type and color, but if you're anything like me, you don't currently have the space or the number of pieces in each color that are necessary to justify that kind of system. Second, don't jump directly to hardware organizers for storing your entire Lego collection. Tiago Catarino has a great video where he summarizes his own preferred method of storing his collection, using wide drawers with shallow bottoms and organizer cups to store the majority of his bulk Lego. I'll leave a link to that in the doobly-doo, which I have wanted to say in a YouTube video since I discovered Vlogbrothers when I was like 12. Let's go! The one point where I'm going to disagree with Catarino's argument that this is the best solution is that I think hardware organizers are superior when you're dealing with Lego pieces that you want to use constantly. I build a lot of Lego mechs, and almost every model that I build, as a result, utilizes brackets, mini ball joints, clips, handles, and so forth. Those pieces I have put aside in a hardware organizer on my desk where they're readily accessible, and the increased level of storage and sorting capacity compared to the cups is actually worth it. In general though, I agree with his assessment. I use the same drawers that he uses, which I believe are Alex drawers from IKEA, and they're very effective in terms of space to storage ratio. I was able to get almost my entire collection into just 2 shelf units, and plan on moving the last few pieces of my collection, which are the more bulky parts or the parts that are most common, like big ugly rock pieces and 2x4 brick respectively, into a closed cabinet shelving unit beside my desk where I can use bigger containers for them. Now that we've covered those basics, I kind of have to address the elephant in the room. I suspect that the reason that there's not a ton of very effective advice on sorting Lego online is that every collection is unique and everyone wants to get something different from their Lego. We've already kind of acknowledged this fact in the assertion that you don't want to use hardware organizers, but maybe, depending on what you're doing, you actually do if you're like me and want to have certain types of pieces more accessible. This is why the title of the video is what it is. It isn't clickbait. The goal of sorting your Lego collection is actually to figure out what you want to do with your Lego and what system will be most effective for that. I can't teach you that, but you can learn that yourself. Over the last 1.5 years of this sorting process, I think I figured out some solid approaches and a handful of pointers that will be able to actually guide you along that process though, so you don't have to guess and check the same way that I did. Elephant addressed, we reach our third point. what parts are in your collection are going to have a significant impact on how you want to sort them. Unless you have a really small collection, you probably don't have a very solid idea of exactly what pieces exist in your bulk. So I recommend getting a smaller sample to start. The way that I personally approached this was by getting these plastic shoe boxes from Walmart. They weren't terribly expensive, and I really appreciated that they had lids because this definitely wasn't a one-day process. And I was able to stack them off to the side when I wasn't actively able to work on it. I used them to sort out smaller categories from the total overall bulk, such as bricks, slopes, minifigure parts, and so forth. This approach to the initial sorting process helped me to get an idea of what I had in my collection. By the time that I had reached about the halfway point, I only had less than 2 boxes worth of Technic between 2 categories, beams and linkers respectively, where I had 2 boxes overflowing with minifigure pieces and almost 4 boxes of plates. Ultimately, with the exception of wedge plates, round plates, and certain larger plate and tile pieces that I didn't have enough of to justify sorting individually, I did end up sorting all of my plates and tiles by individual specific piece types. By comparison, parts that I had in larger quantities, like the aforementioned round plates, I knew that I could afford to leave in looser categories because pulling a cup of that category out and digging through it to find the piece that I want wouldn't actually be that difficult. Once you have an understanding of the contents of your collection in mind, we can move on to our second step of our process and my second major piece of advice, dealing with actually apportioning space for your collection. For me, a large portion of this process was meta steps, including waiting for the opportunity to move to a slightly larger apartment and actually buying the IKEA furniture, but then that opened the most daunting portion of the process. My spouse has been an absolute angel about it, considering that for most of the last 2 months, the entire floor of our shared study has been covered in bins of half-sorted Lego. This was also the point where needing to understand what is in my collection and what I want from it came the most into play. Making more space to sort something in a more granular fashion requires the sacrifice of space for other pieces, and knowing what you have and what you want enables you to determine and make those sacrifices in an informed manner. The break-in point for me in actually starting this process was pulling out parts that I use a lot of, the aforementioned mech-related pieces, and sorting them first. Having them blocking out the drawers that were most convenient to access let me see what space they would take up and what space wasn't available for other sorted pieces. I was able to maintain momentum by switching gears and actually pulling out the parts that I used the least, because that left me with the fewest remaining unsorted pieces to work with. I took Technic parts and large molded vehicle parts that I don't use very often and sorted them into the uppermost and bottommost drawers respectively, because I knew that those inconvenient to access drawers were a place that I didn't want to have other pieces anyways. Once you've gotten your high and low usage parts out, you can move into the 5th and kind of final stage of sorting your Lego, what I call the iterative sort. At this point, you probably have a mostly complete idea of the composition of your collection and have made the simple decisions pulling out your most and least used pieces, leaving you with the gray area in the middle. For me, one of those categories was straight edge slopes. The way that I approach this sort, and the reason that I call it iterative, is that I take a large and relatively general category like straight edge slopes and sort it into partial categories, getting into slowly more and more specific sorts each time, and taking the opportunity to investigate my remaining space and see what I have the ability to utilize or put away at that stage. For example, with the aforementioned straight edge slopes, I started by taking inverted slopes and sorting them from standard slopes, then by sorting single face slopes from multifaceted slopes, then sorting by footprint size, and ultimately by slope facing. Honestly, most of the sorting process boils down to this same principle. Take an unsorted portion of the collection, remove some discrete category, and then reassess the remaining unsorted portion for what your next step should be. The best part of this approach for me was that I discovered that I was using my Lego more when it was partially sorted than when it was just stacked in unsorted bins. Even though my ideal sorting solutions were out of reach, I was still moving in a direction where I was able to actually use my collection. By the time I got my highly used mech pieces into the hardware organizers on my desk, I was up from building a new model once every several months to trying something new roughly once a week. I don't know what metrics other people would use, but I consider that a definitive win. Past this point, the majority of your effort is going to go towards keeping the collection sorted. As you acquire new Lego, whether in the form of bulk lots, extras from new sets, or mocks returning to primordial LEGO form, the composition of your bulk LEGO collection will change. But as long as you maintain the iterative sorting process and adjust your storage solutions as needed, you won't have any issues keeping your LEGO in a usably sorted fashion. At this point, the majority of people probably have met their needs, but I do have one thing that I would like to make you aware of if you're looking for something more. One of the primary goals of sorting my LEGO for me is to be able to index what parts I have on Rebrickable.com, link also in the doobly-doo. It's time-consuming and effort-intensive, especially considering that I have mixes of old and new LEGO color combinations, like dark gray versus dark bluish gray. But it's worth the effort, because once you have that completed catalog, Rebrickable will tell you what sets you have the parts to build, as well as pointing out sets that you have most of the parts to build and giving you a list of what pieces you would need to acquire to finish those sets off. As somebody whose collection is largely unsorted childhood LEGO, I would love to reconstitute some of the sets that I had as a kid and maybe even reveal some treasures otherwise lost to the sands of time. In particular, I'm really hoping to be able to rebuild my old school Hailfire droid. For those of you who want a little bit more direct guidance on how to sort your LEGO, this is the solution that I've arrived at. Feel free to pause the video to take screenshots or notes, and if you have questions, I'll do my best to answer anything that you ask in the comments. That about wraps it up. If you like LEGO, please do like and subscribe. When we reach 100 subscribers, I am going to take a sealed copy of the 2009 LEGO Train, the Emerald Knight, and devalue that collectible significantly so that I can give my inner 10-year-old the chance to build their dream LEGO set. Additionally, in the next month or so, I hope to do my first LEGO City video talking about my infant LEGO City, in particular the bases that I'm using for it. So I hope that you stick around for those things. In addition, I'm going to hopefully do some other hobby-related projects on the channel in the near future, including a data-driven analysis of whether or not my favorite mobile game is actually losing content. Thank you so much for your time. I hope to see you again soon.